Right, very good afternoon. I hope so. For Biahoya, Medin, Kofi Asante Mpare, and Afifi Asante Mpare. It's been a while. It's been really long time. But thankfully, I've managed to do a video today. I haven't been super well. I haven't been well. Hence, I was nursing myself, kept myself to myself for a while. And I'm back on now. Um, I've woken up better. I've woken up far better today. So I decided to come and then do a video. Hello, Ernestina. I hope you were. Nti, abusuafoɔ wie mepɛ sɛ yɛkasa yɛka biribi ketewa bi. There's a content be I'm hearing over the weekend whilst I was lying there tossing and turning. I was still reading in between what is happening to Mother Ghana and to do with this um, domestic debt exchange and what have you. And then I came across very interesting article from the Financial Times. And after reading the article, I decided, look, it would be great to share the detail of that article with my viewers, with listeners, with the phone, and then also Ababen and as Ghana for or as Ghana for or as a Ghana government Ababen is yebetini afa film. Entina ewie maba menche meba. I'm just gonna be on for a short while just to discuss this. Minjin this I will even spend an hour here this afternoon. There are a lot of priorities. Christmas is coming, a lot of things to do, and at the same time, I haven't been super well, so I'm just taking it easy at the moment. At the moment, I hope your Christmas preparation is going on. All of you, if I could ask, and I hope things are things are according to plan really. Um, the festive is in the air, isn't it? It's that time of the year again, and money. A lot of money is going to be spent, and it is what it is, isn't it? We go through that every year. But all baswa, but more than I am my favorite, and I share video no, and me what that room. Why? Quickly, let me do something here, and then also please do comment. So when you comment, I'll be able to tell that you're here, and then I'll be able to tell exactly who you are, and then I can extend my woman's greetings to you this afternoon as well. Let me quickly please do something here, and then yeah, I've got it. Down there, one sec. If I can quickly do something here, and then good afternoon to you, new force. I hope you well. Um, long time, new force. We really the new force. We really need the new force. We really do need the new force. We need a new force. We strongly need a new force because what is happening is the NDC and the NPP, we don't know which direction they're taking us, and we strongly need the new force. So great to be here, new force. Share with all the other colleagues, and then let's see how many of them are available and they can join. Thank you for all the likes and the love or the heart. I really appreciate it. Okay, there's this very interesting article that I came across from the Financial Times. And I want us to read through that article. It is very important um, because the world is watching. The world is actually watching, and the world is watching Ghana as we go through the domestic debt exchange and restructuring, and you name it, whatever adjective that you want to use to qualify it. The world is watching, and they really, 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 really watching. Yeah, say yende adiana yeah, about 1 second. I want to share this to a group. Yeah, and say adiana yeah, no. Yenkwana is within the parameters or the borders of Ghana. Hence, yebetimi aye neme bia ye pekeke. But it's actually not true. The world is taking really, really good interest in Ghanaian politics, and a lot is happening. A lot is happening in around the globe. Watching Ghana, the spotlight is on Ghana. Sorry, bear with me. I'm just sharing the videos as well, and then I can focus here. The spotlight is really on Ghana. And I'm going to read a very interesting article with you, and you will see why I'm saying the spotlight is on Ghana. And it is on Ghana. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. They really watching. They really watching. So the over the weekend, FT, which is the Financial Times, and the Financial Times is one of the most powerful newspapers, financial newspapers around the globe. In the West, in Britain, in America, they're more like a Bloomberg, but with them, they do not. They only deal with the newspaper aspect of things, and they deal with financial, or they discuss financial things about institutions, about countries, and this happens all across. It happens all across. Sorry, 1 sec, bear with me. I'm trying to pull that article here. And the FT came out with something very interesting over the weekend. Very, very interesting over the weekend. Yeah, I've got it. And I thought it would be great to share this with viewers and with Ghanaians as well. Let them know that the world is watching, and we should get our act together and ensure that we act well. We act really, really, really well in the things that we do. Very, very, very interesting. So I'm gonna read it, and then as I read along, I will be able to. I've put it on my page as well on the weekend. So those of you who wants to also read it yourself, when later on when you go into my page, you'll be able to have a look at it and also read it yourself as well. Bear with me 1 sec. Trying to get these working. Okay, so where is it now? It's just gonna take me to the link. Then I can actually read it out loud. Oh, come on, FT. Just 1 sec. Just 1 sec. I don't seem to get what is happened here. Suddenly, everything that I've prepared here is crashed. Okay, let's start again. Bear with me. Just bear me on this. One sec. Let's start all over again. Sometimes that's what it is, isn't it? Things doesn't go according to plan. Okay, one sec. One sec. Bear with me. It's not giving me the link now. I'll get it. My, oh my, what is going on? This is an article that I've read and read and read. And as soon as I started the show, okay, let me shut everything down and start over again. Thanks for your patience. I tell you what, as I do that, let me play something here. There's something I wanted to talk about as well, so I'll play that for the meantime. Let me add that to the stream and play that. Thank you.
Because you got into secondary school here early.
Exactly.
And you studied politics, philosophy, and economics, right? Which is a lot of people that go on to become politicians study that course. That seems to be almost like a bit of a rite of passage to politics in a way, because you've got people like, is it Ed Miliband, David Cameron, Jeremy Hunt, that have all studied.
Michael Gove,
Ed Davey,
right? Ed Balls.
Yeah. So one of the things that, as being a bit of I guess there's two questions here. The first is, why did you choose politics?
I thought it was the most interesting thing to do. I actually got into it through the economics. So I studied economics A level because I was really interested in business.
Right.
And what happened was this, that when I was a teenager in the early 90s, my mum's business nearly went bust. And we had a moment when we had this, our major client themselves was struggling in the recession in the early 90s and couldn't pay their bills. So it was a classic late payment cash crunch for a small business. We knew that if we didn't get this check by the end of the week, then the company was going under. Eventually, on the Wednesday or the Thursday, the check arrived and the business was saved and it went on to prosper. But that made me ask this question, how come a perfectly good business employing a load of people who are working incredibly hard, how can that go bust or be at risk of going bust for something completely outside of their control? And the sort of sense of injustice in that made me then ask, how does the economy work? And that's what led me to take an interest in economics, which I had a real affinity with. I loved it as an A-levels subject. And that's what led me to PPE.
At that age, say like 18, 19, 20, were you aspiring to become a politician?
No, I was aspiring to become an entrepreneur. Right. So I almost did economics and management at Oxford, And then somebody told me it was easier to get into PPE than economics and management. And that sounded close enough to what I wanted to do.
Right.
So that's why I ended up doing it.
Is there not, because people have said to me, I've had business success and all these things, I've built a platform. People have suggested, oh, maybe you should go into politics, Steve. And the thing that scares the life out of me is it's like a lose-lose game. People are going to fucking hate you regardless of what you do. So I sometimes wonder, I'm like, who are these people that want to be politicians?
Yeah. So, thanks. But it's true, right? And my experience as health secretary is you get, some people some people love you and some people hate you, right? I was on the tube and I never know how it's going to be when they come up and see me. So I was on the tube last night, and some enormous guy in a heavy metal t-shirt, long hair, comes up to me, and I'm like, "Oh, how's this going to go?" And he said, "I just want to say thanks. I got my vaccines because of you, and I'll never forget it." I was like, "Oh, well, that could have gone worse." And so and obviously not every interaction is as cheerful, to put it diplomatically. And so in a way, that is part of it. That if you're going to make a big decision that affects lots of people's lives, some people are going to like it and some people aren't. That isn't what got me into politics. What got me into politics was the observation that that's where the big decisions are made. And quite rightly in a democracy, the big calls in economics to stop other people going through the same experience that I did as an early teenager with my parents' business, where it almost went bust for something completely outside their control. And that's what drove me. And the combination of the interest and, because it's very interesting politics, and the mission got me there.
So one of the things that is also always leveled at the political system in our country is that, and you kind of see this from, you studied politics, philosophy and economics at Oxford, is that a lot of the people that do go on to make those big decisions, as you've described, they come from privilege. Right. And even, your parents went through a tough time, but living in Cheshire is, I'd rather live there than in Moss Side, right? Yeah. It's a privileged place to grow up and to live, and going into an independent school. You went to King's School, Chester, King's School in Chester as well, which is a privileged place to come from. Yeah. So one of the things that I've always contended with is, and honestly, one of the things that actually quite honestly put me off ever going into politics was this prospect that it's kind of this elitist club where they all come from Oxford, and then the problem you have with that, if that is true, right, is that the decisions then that are made for all of us are made from people that have walked a different set of pathways, right?
Okay, so I think there's a few bits. Let's park the Oxford point, because actually, if Oxford and Cambridge and the other top universities get it right, then actually they are great meritocratic levelers, because the thing that Oxford really did for me, not only taught me how to read and write, but it took a provincial boy from Cheshire and put him into exactly the group that you describe, right? So I was from very much a middle-class background, but if the top universities get their selection right, who they choose, and if they get the support right, so that people from your sort of background feel encouraged and drawn towards them and then supported once you get there, then they can be great levelers. Okay, so but let's park the sort of Oxbridge debate, because that's the sort of, that debate will go on for as long as those universities are preeminent, I imagine. I think the most important thing in politics is where you're going and what you're trying to achieve. And one of the most important skills that I think is incredibly hard to communicate in politics, but is vital to doing the job well, is empathy, right? And you can't walk other people's shoes except through empathy, and the lived experience of a particular background is incredibly important. And I'm a big fan of welcoming people, trying to get people into politics from all sorts of backgrounds. So I'm not disagreeing with your critique. The point is, each and every one of us has our own background. The way that you can try to get over the problem that you describe is through empathy, and that's incredibly important.
I can't have empathy for what it's like to be a woman, for example, because I've never been one.
No, so that's not true. You can have empathy for
it. I can have empathy, but I I believe that empathy comes, real true empathy for someone else comes from understanding the pain or struggle or situation they're going through.
Yeah.
And I can never truly understand the pain or struggle that, say, for example, a woman facing discrimination when she's trying to raise money is going through, because I have never experienced that. So I can guess what it might feel like. It's like almost like the topic of racism, I think. Like, no one can know.
Okay. Thank you. I'm back. I've managed to pull the article. So, sorry, it's taking really a while for me to be able to do that. So the article from Financial Times over the weekend, it reads, Ghana faces rude awakening as the tide of cheap money recedes. So the tide of cheap money recedes. And when they say something recedes, it means in other words is gone. It's gone. It's drawn back. It's drawn back. So let's look at the nitty-gritty of the article itself and see how the whole thing is shaping up. So I'm going to read along and then I'll do some explanation myself. And this is from the Financial Times, as I said. And then it went on to say, when Ghana President Nana Akufo-Addo took to the airwaves in October to assure investors that their money was safe, it was only natural for them to smell trouble ahead. That is exactly what they got. What this article is really telling us is what the market or investors don't like is for somebody to, or for a leader of a country to stand out and begin to tell you your money is safe, your money is that, which means there's a turbulence in the market, or they believe that you might have smelled a rat, you might have smelled something. That is why you were reassuring investors and the public. So let me carry on with this. He said, long considered one of the most stable and best managed country in Africa, Ghana is about to join the list of nations that cannot repay their debts. This list is likely to get longer. Zambia has already defaulted, and the IMF reckons that 19 economies in Africa alone are in debt distress. The government has been in denial. Akufo-Addo stated emphatically there will be no haircuts. It was left to junior ministers to break the news that bondholders could expect a short back inside and to lose about 30% of their treasures in process. In other words, there will be haircut, but some bond, not to everyone. For instance, as it's been explained this morning, individual bondholders will not actually face any haircut, and I believe treasury bill holders as well. There will be a full payment on treasury bills on their maturity. But when it comes to bonds, I think they is going to be reissued, and then what they're doing is they're going to actually lengthen the period that is supposed to mature, so it gives the government time to be able to actually repay, which can still be a pain for some investors. So let's see. It went on to say, Ghana's story highlights the likely fate of other emerging economies as the tide of cheap money recedes. Many got hooked on Eurobond issues as capital market opened some 15 years ago. Ghana issued its first Eurobond for 750 million in 2007, Have I lost everything? It looks to me like I have. I've lost everything. No, I haven't. Okay, everything disappeared, but it looks like I'm back on. So it's okay. I'll play like that. I think all my videos, everything is gone, but I'm all right. I'm good. We do it this way. It's been full of trouble ever since I started to do this video. It's been ongoing back to the, okay, let me start from here again. Ghana issued its first Euro bond for 750 million US dollars in 2007. And it has been ongoing back to the punch bowl ever since. Now, as interest rates normalize and investor appetite for frontier risk wanes, the bowl has been removed. When US Treasury yields were below 2%, Ghana could borrow at 8% or less. Now, the implied rate on its bond is nearer 40%, says Charles Robertson of Renaissance Capital. Renaissance Capital is another investment company. Renaissance, the investment company, they also buy bonds and look into bonds and emerging markets. Oh my God, what is going on with my production today? Bear me 1 second. Let me take you off from full. Probably that is what is interrupting. Hi, Barikishi. Which means investors regard it as too risky to lend to all. That's tough because Ghana and countries like it need money more than ever. Battered by COVID and the ripple effect from the war in Ukraine, economics have stalled and many people have been pushed into poverty. Yet, far from addressing these problems through spending, Ghana will not make cash to satisfy conditions and the IMF, from which Accra is seeking 30 billion US dollars. So referring to Accra means Jubilee House, the heart of government. That's what they mean by Accra. Somehow, it will have to protect the most vulnerable as it is tightens physical. Multilateral agencies will have to take up some of the slack. Ghana has been quick to blame anyone but itself. That is typical. You see, this is the very problem that we've been talking about. When we blame external factors, when we blame other countries, when we blame situations around, but we do not actually say, having said that, we got it also wrong somewhere. The international world is also watching, and they know. That's why they've stated here emphatically that Ghana has been quick to blame anyone but itself. They spoke of confluence of what malevolent forces. So we've always spoken about the confluence of malevolent forces. So there's always outside source forces, people who wish us evil, but never us. A series of, where am I? Okay, yeah, I'm here. A series of exogenous shocks has indeed made the world a hostile environment after promising vaccine and financing rich nations all but abandoned Ghana in the pandemic. Still, the government protests too much. When in February, Moody's downgraded Ghana's sovereign debt from B3 to CAA1, pushing it further into junk territory, Accra attacked the messenger. I believe this message will get to the heart of government. If they haven't seen the FT commentary on this or write up on this over the weekend, then they should be looking out for it. Excuse me. They should be looking out for it because our behavior is being picked up by the international community. We are downgraded because we are not fit to be where we were. We were rather making domains and then shooting the messenger. It all has been captured here. It's all been captured here. I'm going to read that part again. Very, very interesting. It said the government protests too much. When in February, Moody's downgraded Ghana's sovereign debt from B3 to CAA1, pushing it further into the junk territory, Accra attacked the messenger. The finance minister accused ratings agencies of mispricing risk in what appears to be an institutionalized bias against African economics. It would have been done better to look into the mirror. Moody's estimated debt had reached 80%. In other words, Moody's estimated debt has reached 80% of GDP, and debt interest payment will swallow half of government revenue. One Moody's executive found plans to address the deteriorating finances through vague spending cuts and an unpopular levy on electronic transactions. Very aspirational. For which read, total fantasy is cronyism. Bear with me 1 second. The very thing I'm reading from, I've lost it again. I need to go back and then retrieve it. Am I in? Yeah, I got it back. I got it back. So let's start from, where was I? Okay, let's start from the Moody's part. One Moody executive fund plans to address deteriorating finances through vague spending cuts and an unpopular levy on electronic transactions. Very aspirational, for which read total fantasy. Its cynicism has proved well founded. Ghana has some promising ideas. It made schools free up to the high school. It has addressed energy shortage and has some of the best health and welfare indicators in Africa. But spending has always spiraled ahead of elections. See, these are the very things we've been talking about. But spending has always spiraled ahead of election. Too much debt has gone on and escalating public sector wage bill. The point of borrowing should be to improve productive capacity and its with the ability to pay back loans. Ghana government has too often indulged in vanity projects, epitomized by plans for colossal cathedral. Perhaps it hoped to pray it could repay its debt. We've turned to a laughing stock here with these vague projects. The National Cathedral, which doesn't make sense, and sarcastically is being used here that maybe we want to pray ourselves out of our debt instead of working our way out of the debt. Plans to clean up the mess appear no more realistic. The recent budget is described as A Frankenstein mashed up by Bright Simons, one of the Imani think tank. Getting public servants to drive smaller cars, one of the proposals, is not going to cut it. Nor has the government learned humility. It blames a 50% fall in the cedi this year on speculations and black marketeers. It might look instead into its unfunded deficit and the wearing of the printing press. Accra desperately needs a credible plan to get its finances back on the track. That will mean hammering out a debt restructuring package which creditors and accepting that it will be shut out of debt markets. Still, not all is lost. Ghana has solid foundation on which to build. It has one of the continent's best educated workforce, a reasonable, diversified economy, decent infrastructure, and a strong democratic record. That means the ruling party may well be punished in the 2024 election, but markets will in time forgive and forget, just as Argentina, which means Argentina has gone through this and they've come out from the other end very successful. What I want us to have a look at here is three most important things. When we blame external factors and begin to point fingers at external factors, instead of looking at ourselves and taking responsibility on the things that we're supposed to do for the country and we've got it wrong, and admit that we've got it wrong, the international community watches along. And they might not possibly comment. They wait till appropriate times like this. When we borrow money and then use them on a vague infrastructure projects, the international community, the community watches along. They might not at that point come in and comment. They wait for days like this. And projects like the National Cathedral, which we spend money to break structures, to prepare the ground, to try and build a cathedral. Meanwhile, there are other important things that money could have gone in and do. No wonder today, sarcastically, is being used to laugh at us and saying that maybe we wanted to pray ourselves out of our debt. We, as a country, have turned to a laughing stock. And Ghana is a laughing stock as I speak. Ghana is a laughing stock to the world, to Africa in general as I speak. It just has to read such negative. There's so much negativity. The future is so dark that you can't see through. You cannot even imagine the light at the end of the tunnel. You just can't. Yes, we are hopeful. Yes, they are hopeful. Yes, economists are hopeful. Yes, governments are hopeful. Yes, people are hopeful. It's only hope that we have. What if the world situation becomes even worse? We've sat down and we've watched this country run down. self-inflicted destruction upon this country. Years in and years out. Governments in and governments out. The very thing that we've done for 66, 67 years old is not working. Why don't we try something different? There's no harm in trying something different. The capitalist economy, we are not the architects of it. We are only learning the ropes of it and trying to be part of it. But it's not working for us. Even those who are the architects of the capitalist economy, they suffer the worst fate, because this is economic structure which is designed to collapse every 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It bubbles and it bubbles and it bubbles and it bubbles, and then it bursts. It bubbles and it bubbles and it bubbles, because that is how it's designed. It's designed that when anything that goes up at some point has to come down. That is what the capitalist economy is based on. That is why we always go through either a credit crunch or financial meltdown, because the bubble will bubble and bubble and bubble. You see pension funds, you see investment, you see mortgages, everything goes all the way up, and then they crash everything back down. And when they crash everything back down, the richer who have so much money then goes across and then purchase all the assets and the funds in the market and the mortgages and you name it, which is collapsed, and then they build it up again. So the rich always get richer. Good afternoon to you, Sheila. How are you? Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So even the architects of the capitalist economy, they suffer the same fate. We are trying to learn the ropes and then study and then walk on their path. Even as emerging economy, imagine the established economy. They are suffering. It's not working for us. So do we then have to sit back and say, look, for 66, 67 years, this thing haven't been working. Hence, let's look for a different way of doing things. A different way of doing things. Let's embrace a different system. We've sat here and we've watched this country run down governments upon governments. Government upon governments. They go for the loan, they come, they spend the money of that loan, paying public servants, doing on infrastructures, and then they get themselves into debt. They will then mortgage a lot of our mineral resources to pay this debt. Sometimes the debt is even written off for them. And then they kind of have a stable economy for a year, 2 or 3, and then they go back to the same thing again. Over and over and over and over, over and over, and governments in and governments out. It's funny, isn't it? It tells us this is not the way forward. It is not the way forward. You can't keep borrowing to build infrastructures, because after building those vague infrastructures, like the National Cathedral. You will project also the sort of money it will be giving you. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't produce such money back. It does not. It doesn't produce those monies back. We have to find a sustainable way of building Ghana. A very sustainable way of building Ghana. It hurts me to be reading things like this. When I read things like this about Ghana, the perspective of the world in the financial terms, in Bloomberg, in world markets, it just breaks it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. But the truth of the matter is, they know we are so bad at what we do, how we manage our economy, how we manage our country, that they, in simple terms, been able to diagnose what our problems are. In simple terms, they've been able to diagnose what our problems are. And at the same time, they've been able to also highlight where our strengths are. But the unfortunate aspect is we do not actually, normally you will look at where your strength lies, and then you will build on that strength to try and rescue the country or get something better out of the people for the economy. And in our case, we don't do that. We don't do that. Because it has actually mentioned here it says Accra desperately needs a credible plan. Accra means the heart of our government. Accra desperately needs a credible plan to get its finances back on track. That will mean hammering out of the debt restructuring package with creditors and accepting that it will be shut out of the debt market. So when it comes to the markets, we definitely going to be shut out. We know that. Still not all, but it says still not all is lost. Ghana has solid foundation on which to build. It has one of the continent's most educated workforce, a reasonable diversified economy, decent infrastructure, and a strong democratic record. That means the ruling party will be punished. But then the markets will forgive us. So my emphasis will be on the continent's best educated workforce. We, as Ghana, has the continent's best educated workforce. So now the question becomes, how do we mobilize these young men and women, very educated, young workforce, and get them rally around, come out with some ideas, and begin to move the country forward with the help of government agencies. With the help of government agencies. We need this. We need this. Because that's all Ghana has at the moment. That's all Ghana has at the moment. We think we have other resources, gold, bauxite, you name it. But Yes, those are there, but we don't own a lot of it because we have mortgaged a lot of it as collaterals. We have. As we go through these domestic and possibly, excuse me, excuse me, I'm now coming around, getting better slowly. I'm not super well. I've been really, really ill for weeks now. So I'm now coming around slowly. And I just thought, let me do this video. So please pardon me with a cough and what have you. Please do pardon me. Really, 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 really pardon me, please. Excuse me. It's troubling. It is troubling. But unfortunately, it is what it is. We have to face the music. We have to face the reality. All hell has broken loose on Ghana at the moment. And the only thing we can do as Ghanaians is to accept the condition, but begin to think outside the box, and then begin to be, one, innovative. Two, we have to work together. This is not partisan thing. It's not NDC, MPP thing. Yes, I understand when people get angry because it has taken a particular party and their policies to get us to where we are. I get it. But if half of the country or almost half of the country say, we're not going to be part of this, meanwhile, you still live in the country and help the ruling government now to help restructure and begin to build on our strength, then unfortunately, it will even be more suicidal for the country. It will even be more suicidal for the country. It will be. There is this dangerous perception out there by some of our brothers and sisters making videos thinking, oh, we've got people in wrong position in ministries, because I've seen videos that people were thinking that they have steady political science. They are the well-educated. Hence, they have all the knowledge to run a country. And that perception is absolutely bonkers. It's wrong. Absolutely bonkers. I don't know where they got it from. It's totally wrong. Wisdom is not only in the heads of the knowledgeable ones, academically knowledgeable ones. If so, then countries will be run by professors only. Professors only. Professors only. That dangerous perception that mena mesra history, hence mena minim abakose mena minim Ghana history, Ghana politics, where it started from, where it's gone through, and that is where its end is rubbish. Mena minim politics nimu is absolutely rubbish. Yes, in every industry, in you need to have the basic understanding of what you are getting yourself to, and the basic knowledge, and possibly build upon that knowledge, middle of the road, If you are high end on that, good for you. But in politics is about governance. And governance is about governing the people. So I'm gonna put something here. Let's have a look at the United Kingdom. Let's have a quick look at something here. Let me quickly add that to the stream. Okay. This was 2019. This, one second, where is it? Let me stop it here. This is an overview of the people that we have in politics in United Kingdom. It looks like across the demographics, then it is able to tell us those who come from educated background or higher education or that kind of education. So here is giving us a breakdown. It said 91% went into university. Okay, let me start from the top. It said as the dust begins to settle after a historic reshuffle. This was 2019. So this is Boris Johnson's cabinet. We take a look at the new cabinet and their higher education background. Our initial analysis reveals 91% went to university. One was at Sandhurst and at Agricultural College. Two-thirds, which is 67%, went to Russell Group University. The Russell Group University consists of, there's so many of them. I'll be able to mention a few of them. University of Bath, University of Warwick, University of which university again? It consists of a whole group of university. That's not actually the most important thing. But if you look for the Russell Group universities, you get to know you get to see them. And then nearly half, which is 45%, were at Oxbridge. What they mean Oxbridge is Oxford and then Cambridge combined. As you can see, 10 at Oxford and 5 at Cambridge. Okay, and then I'm gonna go on to break down certain information for you to see. I'm gonna try and break down certain information for you to see. The mini sets we have. Okay, so starting from the top, we have the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and then undergraduate degree at Oxford. Okay, what did Prime Minister himself study? You can see the classics. Okay, then we have the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, back then, who was also in Oxford, okay, and then studied law. Then we have the Chancellor then, which is Sajid Javid. University of Exeter, studied economics and politics. We have the Home Secretary then, which was Priti Patel, who went to Keele University and studied economics. Then we have the Brexit Secretary then, who went to Cambridge and studied history. Take that into account, history. Then we have the Defense Secretary, Ben Wallace, back then, who was at Sandhurst. And I believe that Sandhurst is one of the... Okay, I'm going to leave that because I know Sandhurst is more to do with the military, the MOD, with some, I think they educate a lot of the soldiers and those through there. So I don't think it's really, it's an institution for the MODs. And then we have the Justice Secretary, who then studied at Durham, which is Durham, yeah, up north, and studied law. We have the health secretary, Matt Hancock, at that time, who went to Oxford as well, and then he studied politics, philosophy, and economics. Okay, and then we had the education secretary, then Gavin Williamson. He went to Bradford University, University of Bradford, and studied social science. Social science. And then he was in charge of what? Business, as a business secretary then. Then we went on to the environment secretary. You could see the environment secretary studied law. It's crystal clear here. Then we all went on to see the transport secretary studied business and war. Let me drag this slide a little bit to give me what I'm looking for. Okay, am I there? Yeah. Okay, stop there now. So the transport secretary studied business and finance. A transport secretary, he did business and finance. Then the list goes on and on and on and on. Then you could see international development secretary, he did applied physics. He did applied physics. What I'm trying to tell you is that there is this dangerous teachings out there by some of these video makers pulling Ghanaian minister's name and saying that your problem is say a minister of sports no on one call any sports school or yeah agriculture, and I say minister of finance no one or one when economics and finance, but rather no ebia usua politics. And I say ebia minister of agriculture, ebia when agriculture, ebia or yeah law, and hence they are in wrong places. Therefore, we are suffering the fate we are suffering now. Is obi obeka sachiro bi akache and say unim nyansa oboa. And UK is a typical example. You can check the UK cabinets from donkeys of years to the current. And why do they get the result they do get? They get the result. Work and Pension Secretary or called University of Edinburgh, Osua History. Osua History. Yen previous finance minister, Osua History. So the list goes on and on. Mema obimba mekanchros onu no political science into onu no nim everything about Ghana politics into onu no betimi yaman nkrato betimi afan krata no treaty no wakenkan now one when mu achire nkrofo it's not true. There are people who are great readers who cannot even explain themselves, and there are people who are very good at explaining things to the public or to the audience, and they are not even super readers. Beyond the skill set. In ministerial work, you do two ministerial. And I'm going to play a video. Matt Hancock will explain this in a podcast that he was interviewed. Yet the two ministry say your ministerial work yeah. It doesn't matter what you study. It's the experience you come along, because you coming from you representing the government representing the people. You go in that particular ministry to go and meet the experts in that ministry. You then sit down and then be able to draw the government path of what they want to achieve in the next 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or 8 years. And then because the experts, sometimes because they are experts, omutino oma kansi omu expert say they don't see government, they don't see the people. So you as a minister, you are there to ensure say you are showing them the role of the government, the path of the government, and how you will communicate that information to the experts, and then the experts will then work with you to be able to arrive at where the government and the people wants to be. Thank you, Sheila. Sheila said, yes, this is something our people need to understand. Of course, I don't want to mention names here, but I've heard people with bigger platforms saying, political science. Inti yen ye nim adie ni nyina oboa munim hu. Obi nso say, I've seen other video makers saying, ministers see omo pictures to on the subjects they did, thinking they've been placed wrongly. They haven't been placed wrongly. Let me tell you, ministerial work is like a project management. The ministry becomes your project. You have been communicated to by the government, the direction the government wants the ministry to go, what the government wants the ministry to achieve, and representing the people in that ministry. So all you do is when you get there, you then go and meet up with the public servants. Don't forget, every ministry have public servants who are very experienced and they've been in those jobs 30, 40, 50 years. Some of them all their lives. And they are the expert in that ministry. And all you go and do is you are going to work with this experts. They are going to teach you and show you more of how the ministry works. And your work is to communicate what the government wants to achieve, whether it's a short term, medium term, or long term, with the experts and work together, representing the people to achieve a very constructive goal. That's all it is. So it's ministerial work is a project management. It's a project management. You don't have to go and do subjects on physics or do subjects on what should I say, finance, or do subjects to go on agriculture to actually go and into a Ministry of Agric or Ministry of Information. You have to do public relation and information. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Look, I have this insight from a client of mine who became a very, very good friend. And we were having a conversation, and I asked him how they got to where they are in life. And he came back and told me there are top 6, 7 universities that the blue chip companies recruit from. All the blue chip in companies, you name it, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, Barclays, Citibank, all the top investment companies. PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they have 6 universities that they shortlist and recruit from. So on their application, when they are shortlisting, what they do is, if they can, they'll recruit all their staff from Oxford and Cambridge, but it's impossible. So they look at these 6 universities and then they will shortlist from it. So they will look at what university you go first. And upon looking at what university, that is their selection process. They don't even look at what subject you went to that university to go and do. Now, you can go to that university and do in Ghana, many example, your Lego no more free be dondology, or more a culture and I think it's culture or something. No, it's a normally from. You can go and do that. You can go to that university and study anything you want to study. You can go and do history. You can go and do some chief subject. Once you come out there successful, the possibility that you'll be hired by a blue chip company is great. Why? Because to them, once you've been able to get admission into that university, they know you have the ability of a very, 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 very high, what should I say? High education. Hence, you've been beat into shape. You've been cultured. You've been educated on a different level. You've been tested on a different level. Hence, if they pick you up and polish you and put you in any place, you will function and be able to give them the result that they're looking for. Thanks, Doris Aqua. Culture and Fine Arts. Thank you. Thank you. Lost in translation. Sometimes the idea becomes too much, and then that's it. You struggle to drag your words. And this is how it works. In America, I understand it works slightly different. It works slightly different. So the idea that, oh, you have to be in this university or you have to study this to be able to get to certain places or to be able to achieve certain things or to be able to work in some ministry or to be able to be a head or a minister in that area is utterly wrong. It's wrong. And I've seen this information being communicated by some of these bloggers or content creators on politics and what have you thinking, or say then political science. Look, only few people even study political science because majority of subjects, they don't do political science. You will do politics with economics or philosophy. What about people who study philosophy? People who have studied philosophy and history, they are as good to me, even better than those who have studied political science. Why? Because in governance, you find that philosophy it runs through across governance. Across governance. So we have to be very, very, very careful. We have to be careful of how we communicate some of this information to Nkrofo. And unfortunately, Obi Onoma on one and research, to me, you can go and study, you can have a PhD in politics or PhD in your political science or your history and what have you. That doesn't mean, say, you supersede somebody who is done culture and arts and they have a master's in it or they have even first degree in it. No, not at all. Not at all. Because somebody could be a PhD or that. Somebody could be a professor and yes, though, they cannot even communicate properly. They cannot. They cannot even project manage properly. What about that? What about that? So these are some of the things that I think is very dangerous. We need to look out for, and then we need to take the accelerator off. Our minister said, "Oh, we any other only good enough." And I some say we any other that means ministry na no when say or agriculture one agriculture or be your law into your good at baby or dano. And I'll be all the Ministry of Information. Yes, you as I see the Ministry of Information. It be one anything to do with information and what do you call it, international relation and you name it, and because of that, you know, now it's wrong. It's not true. It's not true. More the democracy they buy no more practicing democracy no set pace now yeah the copy copy templates now you per se you're building on that democracy no, so that's not mean say almost in a way is successful for them. In a way it's a success because they know, say, if somebody have a higher education, it doesn't matter where you put them, they will excel. They will excel. It does not matter where you put them. I think it's only cases that, excuse me, with the Ministry of Finance, you always need somebody who is good with finance, who is good with economics, who is good at figures, who can forecast, who is good with finance, economics, and possibly mathematics. These even with mathematics, crample a lot. Uber Chrome Walmart, they do 3 different core subjects in mathematics. You do the pure maths, and then you do what is called the mechanics, and then you do the graphs or so on. In the mathematics scramble, obi or very good at you onye good at bako. So, but in that ministry, there are people who are experts in all aspects. So those people will carry your minister through. And you minister no. A minister cannot. The public servants in the ministry, they have more experience, majority of them, than the ministers appointed. So, inti eyade biara me pese ena me bomoden edika sa me video ya me ye na ye nyina yesua bibi efim. Don't let people deceive you thinking they are the history masters, they are the political science, what have you. Therefore, they have all the wisdom. They are the ones who can communicate. They are the ones who can explain. They are the ones who can digest information and dissect it and be able to break it down for the general public. It's absolutely bollocks. Absolutely bollocks. Those people, they live in cuckoo's land. Trust me, they do live in cuckoo's land. They can come with their PhD. They can come with their doctorate. I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's, but I can sit down and I'll be able to communicate, even sometimes communicate better than them. It happens in all walks of life. Having seen so many businessmen who have never been to school, who ends up being so successful in the business world, and then be able to employ people from all walks of life, including well-graduated people academically from masters to PhD to you name it, having recently. It happens so many times. Lord Sugar is a typical example. Donald Trump is a typical example. So those people should stop. For the mere fact that you have that academic qualification doesn't make you wise. And for the mere fact that you have wisdom doesn't make you rich. It's simple. The Bible speaks about a poor wise man. The man was wise, but he was poor. You can be wise and still be poor because your wisdom, if not applied in a way that it will make you money back, then unfortunately that wisdom it just doesn't help, is it? It just doesn't help. That wisdom, you might be able to use it to advise people, but you also have to apply it in the way that You providing the service of advising people, what do you earn back out of it? So it's a funny world. I don't like it when people come to try and belittle people and trying to tell them, Jenny, yes, you see, Jenny, I say, into Jen, I name idea we Jenny bit naturally. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. And you're no correct. And you're no correct. And you're no correct. Then like people like Donald Trump, sank on your president. Trump wouldn't have been a president. Trump, he wouldn't have been. There are a lot of successful business people in this world who do not even have a clue about some of these things that we talk about, but they're successful business because they apply their wisdom on their field and they make things happen out of it for them. Anyway, me the best here area video in na NC. This is Matt Hancock, and when he was being asked in a podcast by this gentleman, what's his name? Stephen, is it Bartlett? Yeah, I think it's Stephen Bartlett. And a minister on church.
I don't know how a white male politician that's gone to Oxford will know what it's like to be called the N-word on the playground when I was 11, and how that made me feel, like the feelings of shame and being different that I then went on to feel. So I tend to believe that the way we create a truly empathetic political system is by finding a way to get people in that have come from like low economic housing and different backgrounds and minorities. So when I look at the political landscape and I see that a lot of people have come through a very too many people have come through a very privileged background, it makes me think that the decisions that are going to go on to be made will lack that true understanding of what it's like to grow up in a house that is like damp and moldy and there's rats and stuff.
So there's I'm grinning because there's two ways to answer this, right? But the thing that's absolutely screaming at me to say to you is that is why you should go into politics.
But right? I feel like I can't get in because
of course you can get in. You'd be I'll sign you up now. It depends which party you want to join. That's I can only speak for one of them, but go for it. So firstly, that's my actual response. But the other thing is, it is wrong to say that you cannot that you can't empathize with others and others' situations. You can't have lived somebody else's life, but you can seek to try to understand where they're coming from. And I certainly do that. And, that's part of representing a constituency. I think it's actually really hard to communicate in politics, the empathy point, because it's really easy to generalize. And it comes down to the fact that if you poll people, right, most people think that politicians are useless, but when you name a politician, they tend to think that they're their local person, their local MP, they tend to think that they're great, right? So there's a gap between what people think of politicians as a whole and think of individuals who they've interacted with.
Yeah. I think I can definitely empathize with pain and suffering and all of those things. I just think in order to create a truly like representative political system, it needs to be full of people who have actually gone through those things.
Get involved.
I think the thing that's always put me off is because when I heard about this, like, everyone's come, a lot of politicians have come from a certain background, and then you see how promotions and stuff are done. It makes me think that it's a bit of a system where we're promoting our friends and bringing them up, and if they've gone to Oxbridge and I went, I studied with them, I'll promote them when I get there. So it's always felt to me like running would be very, very, very difficult because I don't come from that sort of privileged Oxbridge, like typically quite boys club place. Yeah, that's how it feels, right, for me. So I might be wrong.
I really think you're wrong, because I think actually the system, in a way, because of this problem, the system actually tries to draw people through faster.
Is it doing a good enough job?
Look at give him his credit. Look at who Boris Johnson has put in his cabinet, right? And I know that you're immediately thinking of people he was at the same school and university as, right? But there are an awful lot of people who weren't, right? And I don't want to go through the individual backstory of, you know, the guy who arrived aged 9 from Kurdistan with only his dad with only £1 in his pocket, right? Sajid Javid, who grew up in one of the poorest streets in Bristol and made it from there. And by the way, whose family of amazing men. I think he's got 4 brothers. There's 5 of them. Rishi Sunak, right? He grew up in his mum's a pharmacist. He grew up in a pharmacy, right? There are loads of people who have made it from difficult backgrounds, and actually, I'm sad that you have the impression that you do, because it's not really my experience of being there.
So you make the decision then to move towards politics. You become eventually George Osborne's chief of staff in 2005-ish, yeah. And in 2010, you became the MP for Mid Suffolk,
West Suffolk.
Okay, right. And that was your entry into politics.
Yeah.
And moving forward, then you get promoted a few times, and then Theresa May comes in and demotes you.
Yeah.
So she demoted you to Minister of State of Digital Culture.
Digital and Culture, and God, that was a brilliant job. I mean, so
why did she demote you?
She demoted me because they decided they wanted a clean break from the Cameron Osborne years.
She didn't like George Osborne.
Well, she fired him pretty brutally, and I was just, head below the parapet enough to get through. And she demoted me. I was attending cabinet at the time, and I remember the meeting. It was they had told the press that they were going to fire people until 11 a.m. and then start hiring people. And I was asked to go and see her at 10:50. So I thought, this isn't going to go very well. I walked in, and she'd been running about 15 minutes late. So I walk in, and there's a clock on the wall in her House of Commons office, and it says 11:05. And I said, it's gone 11, so I guess this is going to be okay. And because I thought, well, at least make her laugh if she's going to be firing me. Why make it unpleasant? And she said, well, that depends how you react, because there isn't a space for you in my cabinet, but I know you're really interested in digital, and that's one of the big things that's going on in the world. So would you like to be the number 2 in DCMS and be responsible for digital policy, and just keep your head down and sort that out? And I leapt at it. It was absolutely wonderful.
This is maybe a bit of my political naivety, but when I was reading through that you'd been the minister for like digital, business, enterprise, energy, and ultimately health.
Yeah.
How can one person know anything about any of that stuff?
Yeah.
And how can anyone be a master of 5-6 different things?
Yeah, because that's not the job. So it's not the job to be the master. In a way, it's the job to be the people's representative amongst the experts. So your job as the minister is to be able to be the representative of the people who is responsible for the direction of that policy area. And you have endless experts. Your job is not to be an expert, it's to listen to the experts and then decide democratically what direction do we want to go. So an area that I do know, I did have a background in, take on the future of the internet. And
what was your background in that?
Well, only that I can code and I understand a bit of about technology. But the big question was, how do you keep children safe online, right? And how you take the internet from a sort of a wild west in social media to a place where people have more protection, that was the most important question in that area at the time. And for that, yes, you need experts, but you also need you basically need a view of where you want to get to. You need to set the mission and the direction.
Let's talk about that.
It's leadership that's needed.
My background's social media, and I actually, whenever I see like the social media policies being set, I always the debate we have in social media and digital is like, who is it that's making these decisions? Because the people we see, when we see, obviously the spokespeople, as you've described, we know that they don't know it like us.
Yeah.
So we think that we pray that the decisions aren't made poorly. So let's take, because that can be the subject we use to describe all of these industries that you've led as minister. So as it relates to, say, social media, when you're trying to understand what policies to set for children to keep them safe, you're telling me there's this like group of experts behind the scenes who are discussing and feeding information.
Yeah.
And then your role to play is in deciding
on the trade-offs.
The trade-offs, right? Which needs expertise know what the trade-offs are.
Yeah. And then also communicating them.
Communicating it to the public,
and understanding what the public is expecting. Because sometimes experts can get so close to their subject matter that you've got to be like, but there's 60 million people over there who aren't experts, and they need the voice in the room as well.
Yeah, you're ultimately the person when you're in charge of digital that is making these calls. So you speak to the experts, then make the calls. My thing is on a topic like digital, the harm that can be done if someone doesn't understand that area of expertise, because ultimately the minister makes the call. You can destroy an industry, cripple an economy. So I've always thought that the person making the call should be really experienced in that subject matter. And that doesn't seem to be the case because of the design of the political system.
Because of democracy, Stephen. It's democracy. And that's good and right, right? Because when you have technocratic government, you just get, experts are so focused on their area that sometimes they just don't see the big picture.
So you're saying you need that impartial kind of outsider to...
Yeah, that's what I tried to be as a minister. And also, so it's about lifting people's eyes to the big social trade-offs, and I mean that in the best sense, that the trade-offs within society, how free to be versus how safe to be in the internet. It's an absolute classic of political philosophy, right? And people have been worrying about that question in the offline world for 300 years, and we were bringing that sort of approach into the online world as opposed to just leaving it as a completely libertarian space. But the job is to synthesize the expert view, but not just follow it, because the experts can become so focused, but also they can't sometimes provide the leadership, right? To say we're going over there, and yes, of course we're going to take on Facebook over some of the harmful content. Of course we are. We're not just going to lie down and say that they can make the rules up.
It's interesting because when I see the political debates with things like Facebook, a lot of the government officials, both here and in the US, haven't got a fucking clue what Facebook is. And you can see them asking Mark Zuckerberg the most dumb, naive questions about the platform. And then as an outsider watching that these people that don't understand what they're talking about are ultimately going to be writing the legislation, as someone that works in the industry and could actually tell you what, in my view, having worked in the industry for 10 years, deep in it, that fully understands things like the Cambridge Analytica scandal and data privacy, and really also understands the context of the media pressure, which is sometimes is agenda-based. And I worry
so getting
that we
a rational, So getting a rational solution out of that bundle of problems is not easy.
Yeah. So what would you?
But it is democratic to ensure that somebody who represents people is ultimately making the decision. But if they're any good, they'll listen to the advice that you get.
I think my view is that they should represent the people for sure, and I think that spokesman role in leadership is incredibly important. But I also feel like they should have deep understanding of the nuance and complexity, and have experience in the thing, which kind of brings me on to, you became in charge of health as well, the health minister, which is obviously something not in your wheelhouse.
No. So I'm a doctors ask me, why should a non-doctor be responsible for the health service? Now, two answers to that. First is, well, it's pretty arrogant of doctors to say it should be a doctor. Well, what about a nurse, right? Because there's more nurses in the NHS than doctors. Park that minor local issue, right? The reason is because I am there as the representative, not just of those who work in the health service, but of the people who use the health service, which is to say all of us. And so I think actually it's better for the health secretary to essentially be somebody who is there on the side of the patients. Of course you listen to the clinical advice, and some of the most amazing brains in the world, right? Like Chris Whitty, Jonathan Van Tam. These people are amazing, wonderful communicators, very shrewd advisors. Ultimately, it's right that the person taking the decisions is representing the people through the democratic process we have, and not representing the producers, if you like. That is a better way of structuring it.
You think you believe that? Because
I really do. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know these issues deeply enough to know the full complexities, and this is maybe even proving my point that I don't understand the nuance of politics. So I can't actually say if that's a better or worse system. One would assert, though, that the best solution might be to have someone who understands the side of the patient, because they are one. We're all humans. We all live in this society, so we use the NHS. That gives me a little bit of empathy as to the system from a patient's perspective, but also someone that understands health and the nuances of that. Maybe that's spent the last 10 or 20 years, working within the industry and can understand those layers, more than someone who was working in digital 5 minutes ago can. It's just an observation as a naive outsider.
Yeah. Like, look,
why do these people that don't have experience in a subject matter become the minister for it?
Yeah, it's quite a common. It's quite a common critique of politics. And different countries deal with it different ways, right? So some countries, the entire cabinet is made up of people who aren't in parliament. The US cabinet is made up of people who have to, by law, not be in the Senate or the House of Representatives. But then you get even more of a divide between the sort of political and the democratic over here, and the essentially technocratic over there. I think that our system is better than the US system, because these two things are merged together. Because you get, in taking these decisions, you get incredible advice. You get access to all the industry experts that you want to talk to, and ultimately you're making balanced judgments. The way the UK does it as well is that
Okay. Good afternoon to every one of you here. Yes. Hey, good afternoon to you, Minyaba. It's funny how many people are watching an important topic. It is true. It is funny because majority of no disrespect to Ghana, for no disrespect, please. I don't want to take it out of context, but majority of yepe is a nkwasi ade baby a obekono ni ye nkrofo. And I say all fire nkrofo. Yes, fire. Na ye nipa ni fire nipa. Majority of our that is what we like. So we end up being on those platforms, sitting there, spending hours, taking in a lot of filth into our system, where they will get the education, get something into their heads that they can actually take with them to go and live a life, the brain. But as I've always said, my job is possibly just one person to give that information to give that awakening to, and then it changes that person's mindset. She said, what to be before a womb, and then you are happy with it. So it is what it is. So the perception is that our ministers have to be experts. They have to actually do the subject or study on the field of ministerial appointments. I just came here this afternoon to actually squash that. And this is not just somebody. This was Matt Hancock. Matt Hancock, before he became our UK health minister, he was a cultural minister. He was different minister, So he's been through all those, and son of a health minister. And the man is not expert on health. So into wababa sometimes no asam no oka 3-4 asem yom si utusie na no utumbra no actually esie. So sometimes it's good to back some of the things that we educate Ghanaians or we talk about with some of videos from experts. Yes, and this was his podcast. As we speak, he's actually in Australia, in the jungle, in Australia, because he's still a member of, he's an MP, and it's a whole lot about him in the jungle at the moment, So it is what it is. It is our microphone. Omo Chegana for so omo the way picture betua asamesi when Suya DSA Ewaha enti Untiminya great minister asamesi Untiminya health minister because ono no Kosuya law he knows nothing about health. Asamesi Kosuya your friend is saying ebia culture and art into no Untimi bam secretary for defense is absolutely rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. Because in every ministry, you have the experts. You, the minister, you are not an expert. Don't try to be an expert as well. You are the communicator of the people on behalf of the government. He has to go there and then show the experts this is where the government vision is. This is where the government wants to travel, or this is the very road they want to travel on a short term, in the medium term, in the long term. Hence, how do we all work together to achieve that? And that is how it's done. It is a son Mark Hancock, and so Ababechi Chimu, the Damasibe. My job this afternoon here is done. I've managed to teach one person or educate one person on something, and I'm happy. Hopefully, this week, as I'm getting better, I'll be able to come out and do a bit more videos. Thank you, and God bless you all.